Glad you have a spine? How do you feel about being classified as a vertebrate Homo sapien? Is it a thing you had no control over? A construct to instruct? Options are available to the how and why you have a spine. One, two amoebas in a primordial soup inadvertently and spontaneously grew next to each other in the soup. They bumped into each other, had a precursor to what we would call intercourse, and they made another amoeba. Repeat the cycle until baboons and Homo sapiens, and then you with a spine or two. Eve was created to help Adam and to have intercourse with Adam and produce godly offspring. Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Let's start with showing the disclaimer. There it is. We're going to not, we have a lot of pictures to go through and in some scriptures. Years after the government stopped redemption of silver certificates, treasury vaults satisfy. That seems like, maybe we should start here. This is like, to me, every logo for the NFL is evolving into an eye of Horus, that ancient symbol of the occult, because this is all one big plan. Now, I think I'm going to come back to the other scriptures later, but let's do these now. Let's look at Exodus 19:5. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. That's two with one verse. You get to know it's all about the treasured possession, and it's all about the earth is Shiloh. It all belongs to Christ. You won't go across all of Israel and I'm going to return. All of the earth is Israel. It is Shiloh. That was the mystery. All the earth is mine, you treasured possession with a spine. There it is. I looked it up and I said, you know what? If it's only used one of 6 times, I'm going to look it up. So I did. And there was a word in it. This word. And it led me to, like, what is that one the Bible calls all land Christ's? It is called Shiloh. Oh, Genesis 49:10. That's when he blesses his son. There's some debate about it. They want to make it into a debate. Does it mean everything is his? Or, well, what is the difference? Shiloh. Oh, it's debated among scholars. It could mean he whose it is, or he to whom it belongs. That's not an argument. All that is mincing words over the fact of he owns it. But arguments must be expected. we'll look at Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. Again, you treasured possession. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Wow, you elect, you called, you chosen, you faithful, you hey, Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 2. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the peoples on the earth. This is Deuteronomy 26:18. I wonder if it sounds like that. And the Lord has declared today that you are a people for his treasured possession, as he has promised, and that you are to keep all his commandments. That doesn't sound like an unfair deal. First Chronicles chapter 29, verse 3. Moreover, in addition to all that, I have provided for the holy house. I have a treasure of my own of gold, silver, and because of my devotion to the house of my God, I give it to the house of God. That's how you do it. You don't know the left hand, don't know what the right hand is like. You take it, God. It's all yours anyway. King David, right? Way to go, man. Psalm 135, verse 4. For the Lord has chosen Jacob for himself, Israel as his own possession. That's the word treasure. I don't know why they didn't go with the word treasure. Probably because King James did. I don't know. I'm not a King James fan, but that's the right word. That's why I'm looking up every word of what you are. And how about the difference between Jacob and David? Jacob, oh, he's so small. He can't go hunt those deer and stuff. He gets tired, but he could wrestle God, contend in the womb for what is right. I want somebody to ever show me in the Bible where God says one negative thing about Jacob. I know everybody likes to go, oh, he's a deceiving heel catcher. Prove it to me by scripture, where God says he's a no good, dirty scoundrel, and I let him get away with it. You won't. Not there. How about Ecclesiastes 2:8? I guess Solomon was pretty smart. I also gathered for myself silver and gold. Okay. And the treasure. That's that word of kings and provinces. So we got the singers, and we know how. Well, it's treasure. It's that word. It's what you are. What type of treasure? Malachi 3:17, one of the most important chapters of the Old Testament. In the English Standard Version, it reads, somebody, they shall be mine, says the Lord of hosts, in the day when I make up my treasured possession. And I will spare them. Hallelujah. Metaphor. It's going to be exactly like he's going to spare them like a man spares his son who serves him. So there is that. Something to think about. There's also Isaiah 28. Now therefore do not scoff, lest your bonds be made strong. For I have heard a decree of destruction from the Lord God of hosts against the whole land. Whew. I also had this one thing I was going to talk to RJ about, and that it would have involved because of the suspicious Middle Ages. Now, think about this. We're given the example that, we have a burden, it's light. We have a yoke, it's easy. It's to Christ. We're made and saved to carry his, crucify ourselves, carry his burden every day, plow for him. And that's the example of, oxen plowing. And in the time of Rome, they hadn't invented the plow. So are they really giving us the right history? No. Something to think about while you watch this video. This man is a scholar. Look at that. He's been around for at least 14 years. And this was an old video when he was replaying it. And it shows the trip of Paul. And this was what scholars talked about. We didn't talk about should people speak in tongues or crazy things, or did nobody took serious. Adam and Eve and Satan had sex with Eve in the Garden of Eden. Nobody would take that serious because that's apocryphal nonsense. We were saying things like this.
Eventually come back to Antioch, and that's recorded for us in Acts 13 and 14. He's back in Antioch for some time. He comes and is in fact a participant in the Jerusalem Council that we already mentioned earlier. There's a lot of heat, a lot of problems brewing, and Paul's missionary journey is precipitating it, because the question is, with all these Gentile converts, they are in a sense coming into the Commonwealth of Israel. What are we going to impose upon them so that they can be legitimate participants of what we view as the true expression of Israel, you see? And some wanted them to be circumcised and go through all kinds of rituals and dietary restrictions, etc. And at the council in Jerusalem, the agreement was reached that while the Jewish people might continue their very restrictive regime of religious practice and so on, nevertheless the Gentile converts were going to be given a much more lenient kind of rule to live by. And that's recorded for us there in chapter 15 of Acts. That was Paul.
It's also repeated in the book of Acts chapter 21. So it's the four things. Don't eat food offered to idols. Don't eat food that's been strangled. Don't eat the blood. Don't mess with the blood at all. And flee from the sexual fornication that's outside of marriage. These were the things rational people talked about, not the nonsense of today of like, no, we should worship on Saturday and follow the Jewish laws, and Paul's bad, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it way more often than you should have allowed yourself to. Go. Here's this thing, the last superpower. Everybody wants peace. Or was this a psyop? It's all a psyop. If you're going to San Francisco, wear flowers in your hair. They're talking to women. Women still kind of knew they had women. But now, a couple of years earlier, they got the pill, and they've been normalized by the education of Satan to teach them they're Homo sapiens, they're vertebrates, they're monkeys. The Beatles took them in 1964 from I Want to Hold Your Hand down Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Road to Why Don't We Do It in the Road? No one will be watching us. Why don't we do it in the road? Because the monkeys do it in the road. That's what the Beatles saw in India.
At peace, growing prosperous for as long as possible. One of these original 6 did far better than the rest, with the outcome largely predetermined by the features of land around them. Knowing that, which would you choose to start as? Food is critical. A population can't grow without it. You'll, of course, want fresh water, something reliable and plentiful. People and your crops depend on it. A natural barrier would be welcome, something invading armies would struggle with. For those that said the Nile, tell them what they've won, Bob.
That's their version. They got an evolution history, and it all came down to who had the best land. Still doing that. Look, RJ. I think I've been hacked or something. Oh, yeah. I'm curious about this stuff now.
Where all of the chloroplasts are, and the chloroplasts are the main event of leaf senescence. Inside these mesophyll cells, you'll mostly see chloroplasts, you also see the nucleus of the cell, and this big old vacuole, which is like a bag of water that's slightly more acidic than the surrounding parts of the cell. We're going to get back to our vacuole in a little bit though. So let's zoom into one of our chloroplasts and see where the main event of senescence happens. If you look inside the chloroplast, it contains even more membrane-bound structures made in these little pancake stacks. These are thylakoids, and those stacks are called grana, and the very first thing that really starts happening is that these thylakoid membranes
Don't you think they look more like cookies?
Are going to start blowing up and breaking down because our beautiful chloroplast here is making the wild, awkward, and goofy transition.
As my good friend Luther, you know him as Yoswell Soaring, would remind you, that's not a real movie. There is some incredible biology. What makes these rare colors? I mean, in your body, green emeralds rare, red sapphires rare, blue lapis lazuli. God's throne's made out of that purplish blue. What are these yellows things?
Is exposed to within a single 24-hour time frame. During the summer, trees in higher latitudes get exposed to way longer days. More sunlight, more photosynthetic energy production. Nice. In the winter, there are shorter days, which you know is not so good for photosynthesis. So, when enough shorter sunlight days have been detected by our tree, that's their main trigger for turning off the photosynthesis factory.
Man, I'm getting triggered. It's too much photosynthesis, but it's weird. And they're going to have to deal with this when they're going to try to take it underground as they fake fly people to Mars in a simulation where they think they're going to Mars, maybe. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. They'll be able to fake it. Fake it. Wow. And here's really what they think of you. Peasants are rustics. Do you like that rustic look in your house? Do you like it when women bring up every time, people couldn't vote forever, and we were held back like black people? The 80% of the people were peasants. They couldn't vote. Only 1% ever mattered in this reset history. Here's what they thought of you then and now.
And rustics, they will remain. He wants to make a point that peasants simply cannot see themselves as on equal footing with the palace, which is in the place of the Savoy here. Instead of looting all the goods from the Savoy palace, though, they burn them all. They're not here to steal. They want to start a new society where everyone is on equal footing. They then come and meet up with the Lord Mayor of London on the Smithfield, led by their leader, Wat Tyler. Here, it's unclear exactly what happens, but some kind of scuffle breaks out and Wat Tyler is stabbed. He ends up
maybe broke the Freemasonic oath.
Dying. This is a huge blow to the Peasants' Rebellion because without a leader, they become much more fractious. There's no one really driving them forward with a real vision at this point in time. Eventually, the peasants are completely broken. King Richard II gives a very famous speech where he tells the peasants that they are rustics, and rustics they will remain. He wants to make a point that peasants simply cannot see themselves as on equal footing with nobles or indeed himself, the king. They exist in order to give the nobility goods, and they have to know their place as rusticated.
So when we read their history and we see the pictures of the opulence, and we even read about how the kings in the Bible, like Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Persia, Artaxerxes, the king of Judah, King David and Solomon, how they lived so separate from people that were not the working class, although David strove to do right.
Here on the side of Smithfield Market, we finally have a memorial to the Peasants' Rebellion. I say now because it wasn't until 2015 that we had anything at all.
Right, because peasants need to know their place. You need to sit down. You need to shut up. So here's the thing. What is a plant hormone? What'd you call me? What is embryogenesis, the start of it? In their world, they know organisms reproduce sexually, but they want the choice to be the woman's. In our world, have we not? If a woman gets pregnant, can she go abort it if she wants to? Yes. Can the man say, I don't want her to? Yes, but he can't stop it. He can cry all he wants, but there's male and female. Some things are different. Like, are you a sperm producer or are you a egg provider? What's this? This is what they knew in 1920? Speed it up. I'm speeding it up too. So they could see something happening in there, but they didn't know the planning, the complexity. They were using these to convince people of evolution. Like it's the normalization of the world. They do this to say there's no difference between an baby in the womb or a mouse in the womb. Kill it. It's an animal. It doesn't have life, pneuma. There is no life, pneuma, unless it is Rosicrucian, something besides God. But they don't know what causes why. Why do leaves change color? They wish they knew. Yeah, all you need clarification for everything, because it's always going to be who's the seed, And if your creator made you to have sperm and another one to have egg, history shows they're going to find each other. White man's world, how long ago?
In another Charleston factory, big wooden reels for electric cables are turned out. Here, an ingenious spray technique speeds up the painting of wooden sections which go into the making of cases to distribute popular soft drinks. More wood goes into the manufacture of chairs and other office furniture made in another of Charleston's small industrial plants. The variety of products is endless. Here, from sheets of plastic material.
That's doesn't get much better than that. Charleston, this is one of those towns that was obviously is a gift that keeps giving, like San Francisco to the mud flood, flat earth. It's all white world, though. This was still white world for another 15 years or so.
And strut their stuff to music. Now, Clemson cadets, without the benefit of music, perform with thrilling precision their traditional fast-paced drill. Trade flows from shore to ship and ship to shore. But enough of this industry and trade.
So this was the baby boomers. White only. There was no black baby boom after World War II. And here's what they thought, I'll back it up a couple more seconds here. Because I'm going to back it up to here. This is that same old town before the war.
And Lord Cornwallis during the Revolution, and the Yankee General during the dark days of '65. Everywhere is an old time, almost an old world, charm and quaintness.
Give it a second. Look at that bridge in the background. Is that a bridge?
But behind many of these quiet rows of old house fronts, you will often find lovely gardens and enclosed courtyards, where there goes on a pleasant and placid life, such as the casual stranger seldom sees. And everywhere, of course, the Negroes. And everywhere you have Negroes, you'll have music.
They would have us believe in the 1930s, Negroes would run around wearing sunglasses, playing guitars, could walk right through the gate up to their windows and just play their songs because it's that quaint. And that's what they're good. That's what they were there for.
The real Negro
The real Negro quarters were not quite as quaint. They're
quarters in Charleston may not boast classic colonial architecture in all its flower, but it has a quaintness all its own. Somebody has called Charleston the most civilized city in the United States, and in one way at least, it is a highly civilized place. For here, where tradition reigns supreme and the possession of a proud old name is the finest thing a man can have, money means little. That is, it's useful enough, heaven knows, but it won't buy respect or social position.
not in the white man's world where everyone accepted it as true that, may not be evolution, but blacks were not the same. Even in that same era, the 1920s, they were already talking about robots that had skin, that were biological, androids. These were planned. It is happening now. The play supposedly took time around 2001, September 11, and it revealed they started getting a factory that made organic people. But the robots storm the factory and kill all the humans except for the head of construction. He works with his hands like a robot. So crazy, right? But not to them. It's all planned. They were going to be, building it up for Westworld, Battlestar Galactica, the Blade Runner, your world, the world they called in Brave New World the year of our Ford. Wasn't that what they called it? If it was, I'm pretty sure. So we have that. We're going to keep moving. Planned communities, absolutely. They built kit towns because something happened. They repopulated. World War One was either much longer ago or we're not being told all about it, but it's a part of that whole mud flood Armageddon thing, the absurdity of Kaiser Wilhelm's nephew Franz Ferdinand, being gunned down in Sarajevo. That smells to high heaven. There's this thing here, planned communities. Enough said. I got to hear our spirit. He saw the spirit of God, the pneuma, the life that the beast faked. This unclean spirit was faked. Let's go down to Revelation. I think it's chapter 8. Nope. Here's this breath of life. He gave them the breath of life. He says in the spirit of prophecy, the spirit and the bride say, come. So we're looking at pneuma, and the beast was able to make people think the mark, the engraving that they were taking, they were becoming one with a graven image on their head or forehand. Let's see here. The truth is lacking. Isaiah 59:15 starts. He who departs from evil makes himself a prey. The Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no justice. He saw that there was no man, and wondered that there was no one to intercede. Then his own arm brought him salvation, and his righteousness upheld him. This will sound like Ephesians to some of you. He put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head. But then was a time that he didn't, he put on garments of vengeance for cloaking and wrapped himself in zeal as a cloak. Did the zeal of the Lord consume our Messiah? Did he come wishing the fire was already kindled? It did. Now, we have Daniel. He talks about the abomination, I believe, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 12. It is that time, and it was done for the sake of the elect. I've gone over it before. I'll go over it again. But it had been decreed. It had been determined. Was it also determined in Daniel? It was. The desolations were determined. The Messiah, Abba's, he told us it's done, it's accomplished. You wait for it. Things are going to be sealed until a very end, and veils will be lifted. We know they added 1,000 years. The dark ages were the golden age when Christ ruled from heaven with a rod of iron, and Satan was in the the bottomless pit, the abyss. And they had that, you're going to go your way till the end. He was going to die like the rest of the people. He wasn't a part of the blessed first resurrection. It all has to make sense, because they can move into New York and reoccupy these cities like they claim to, but there was another big stink. It only worked so long. These were all people that they said, enough of this stink in New York. We need sanitation workers, and there was still banning women smoking. This is a sympathetic thing of, oh, wouldn't it be better if women could have abortion and men couldn't stop them from killing their children? That'll show them. How's this work?
The city's prominence. Commenting on a collection of early films of the city, the webpage notes, the best of these films conveyed the sense that the already sprawling city was in the process of becoming something much more than a squalid, chaotic urban center. There are skyscrapers going up, the tallest in the world, a great suspension bridge being opened, the largest in the world, and a new subway system, the longest in the world. Notably, the city had dramatically improved sanitation, largely due to the efforts of the extraordinary sanitary engineer, Colonel George E. Waring, who had been hired by the city in 1895 to deal with, among other things, the around estimated 2.5 million pounds of manure, 600,000 gallons of urine deposited in the city streets by horses every.
He makes 600,000 gallons of urine deposited by horses every day seem like a big deal.
Single day. Through a combination of new ordinances and the establishment of a new street cleaning department, Waring had transformed a city that, in the 19th century, had been known as much for the hogs wandering its streets as its urban nature.
And that's all white man world. That's all white man world. They had the one drop rule. Google that. Robert Boyle, these guys did it. There was a plan. It was the Freemasons, the Jesuits, John Birch Society. That's who I've been blaming. Robert, look at that. 101 languages need to know about this guy. Throwing gang signs, the closed system, how to do the pressure. That became a big deal to me today, you know. Oh, sure. He's a devout, pious Anglican. That's what Wikipedia would say. That's their job, to be absolutely 180. They turned it around. They've gone the other way. He was, well, they'll show you. He's this guy from one of the famous one percenter families, and they believed in the Rosicrucian thing. So was he a pious Anglican, or did they just find these houses and say, it's mine? And we are the ones that did the alchemy. We figured out everything, raised by a wet nurse like Winston Churchill. Wrote everything you need to know, endorsed the Shelley Memorial. We'll look at that. His vacuum pump with this man. He killed birds in front of families, including children. It was the earliest form of MK Ultra. Critics of his views put forward in his book was a Jesuit. It was all the same thing. They were working towards the Noahide laws that our whole, even including the recent Charlie Kirk, is leading towards a merging of Roman Catholic, Mormon, and Jesuit Noahide laws. It was the basic Renaissance. They led to the Renaissance, the perpetual light, the art of flying. You know, they studied it all. Oh, he's the one who wanted 24 things, and they ended up figuring out them all. Potent drugs to alter the imagination, procure innocent sleep by drugs. Of course, he needed the women. So we'll look further down the line of what we got at his experiment. And are these children terrified? No, look at it, he said. This bird, we're sucking the air out of it and it will die. They're making me do this, I hope is what he's saying. Where's the wife at? She's not looking. Who knows what she's had to see? So there's that. This is a lot about it, and this was a big deal. That kind of looks like them appealing to Satan to me. Yeah, kind of. What part do you think he's most interested in, that gladiator? Well, I think they're all looking at their parts they like, because that's part of their deal. I want to be called a Christian, they said, but be able to do anything sexually I want. Now, is this even the guy, the poet, the bisexual Shelley? Is it, or did they just find a? I mean, they sure gave a big picture of it. Of course, she's going to be naked. Whoever that, one of his 15-year-old brides, there's his naked thing there. Look at him dead. Memorialized, died at 30 for writing books about atheism. But she liked him. They were in the inner circle, the great two. Somehow, very religious people in the world of Wikipedia. John Milton, I think I've heard of him, wrote Paradise Lost. Religious insanity, spiritual diarist, hanging out with these people. These are the rich women that were allowed to sit in their salons and coffee houses planning the Renaissance, which would lead to abortion. I can kill my husband's child legally and you can't stop me. That's the world we live in today. That's the world that's under this judgment. The last paragraph of a very long article, Judge Roy Moore, pastor of a charismatic church and a Reconstructionist, once